All right, guys. Here we have our week three. This is my view. It's a little bit different than yours, but this is our week three, week of 330 Social Studies, Civil War and Slavery DBQ. It is a 3-day assignment, as I said in the other video, and you can see that you've got two different documents here. In addition to a PDF, a rubric, and and I'll move myself out of the way, a rubric over here, and this school closure, right? This was the plans I had originally typed up, but I was able to put them on here. So we'll start with this. If you take a look in here, these are the plans, and it's a suggested scope. So it tells you week 3, day 1, week 3, day 2, week 3, day 3. But starting at the beginning, it's asking you to please read the instructions for the document, the Civil War. And it does say grade 5 on it, but I think that's good because we're not going to be together. So it might be a little bit easier, but trust me, it's still challenging. It's a document-based question. We'd worked on one of these earlier in the year with federalism, where we were looking at different images, political cartoons, and documents and answering questions about them. However, we're going to take all the things that you've learned in writing so far, both with Ms. Yeagawel and with myself, and write an essay at the end of it. So read the instructions carefully, and I'll preview the actual assignment, and we'll take a look at it together. And complete document 1 and 2 along with the questions. That is going to be your day 1 assignment. So Tuesday, if you do just that, you're on task. Paying attention to answering the questions fully is going to be really helpful, because if you are just sort of lobbing up any answers, when you come back to those questions when it's time to write the essay, it will be more challenging. You're going to have to rethink all of that same stuff anyway. So you could do it in the beginning or you could do it at the end. It's worth it to put the work and effort in the beginning. Day 2 is similar to day 1. You're going to analyze documents 3, 4, and 5. So there's 3 documents this time, and you're going to complete the questions for them. And then day 3 is part B. This was all part A. This is part B. It's the essay. And I've attached the rubric there for social studies writing. We're going to take a look at that in a moment. So if we go back to the actual assignment, and you can see this is due Friday, April 3rd. So if you do it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and you're still working on it Friday, that's fine. And it's even going to launch Monday, which is today. You're probably looking at this. So if you want to get a head start, that's fine. It's meant to be for 3 days worth of work. So looking at the actual DBQ itself, there are a bunch of instructions here. Please do not be intimidated by the fact that it is like a full page of text. I expect you to read this, okay? It's based on the accompanying documents. It is designed to test your ability to examine and interpret the meaning of the documents, then write a final essay which uses important information from the documents you have analyzed. You will write an introductory paragraph. You'll use specific details from at least 3 of the documents. More is better, but to a certain extent. You may include any other outside information that you have learned, and you have finished with a concluding paragraph. So historic background here. Throughout history, basic civil and human rights have been denied people through the actions of individuals, groups, and governments. From the earliest colonial times until 1865, slavery existed in the United States. What was the purpose of slavery from the earliest colonial times until 1865? This is going to be an important guiding question. So for part A, read each document carefully and answer the question or questions after each document. Then read the directions for part B and write your essay. For part B, use your answers from part A, information from the documents, and your knowledge of social studies to write a well-organized essay. In the essay, you should discuss the purpose of slavery from colonial times until the Civil War and how slavery denied people their basic human rights, There is a lot in that. This is going to be, so first of all, the topic of slavery is not a very comfortable one, right? We've touched on it when we were talking about the Constitution and how the framers of the Constitution kind of kicked the subject down the road and weren't really willing to deal with it. And it was one of the things that threatened to dissolve the Constitutional Congress. And you're allowed to bring any and all of that information into your essay as you see fit. But everything you really do need is self-contained in here. So the first document, okay, just an idea. This, first of all, recognize it's a text document. Obviously, they weren't typing it on a computer in a PDF format when it was written. It does not tell you who is saying it. It does not give you outside. There's no accreditation. It doesn't tell you what year it's from. It doesn't tell you who it's for, what format it was in. But it does say this, and it says, "My master used to whip me. He would put my hands together and tie them. He would strip me naked. He would whip me one side till that was sore and full of blood, and then he would whip me on the other side till that was all tore up. So not a very nice narrative. And you can imagine that that is something that was spoken to somebody. And since we don't know who said it or who didn't, but we can take some context clues, right? If someone's saying they have a master, what would that make them, right? So when we have question 1, what does this document say about the relationship of slave and master? We can now assume safely that this was said by a slave and it was about a master. Okay, so be descriptive. Does that say something nice or not nice, right? That's a very simple tool to use to open this up. But now say more. Thinking about human rights, when slaves were whipped, what human right was being denied to the slaves? Was there a list of human rights that we ever saw? No, we're not pulling from a list here, which means you have to get a little bit creative. So think about it. What is being denied to a person who is being whipped? Okay, think about that. Document 2. This is the document, a tobacco plantation, right? You can even see that written inside there. The tobacco plantation image is there. Some of the things to ask yourself: what am I looking at? Who is this for, right? Who is the intended audience? In addition, what can I see? And that may take you a while. This is not something you should just glance at and try and blast through. So the first question is, describe some of the tasks performed by the slaves. So you can see the slaves over here are the ones who are moving around. I'm not going to use the verb of what they're doing, but I want you to try and use that. What do you see them doing? Again, be descriptive. What was the job of the overseer? This gentleman here would be the overseer, though we don't necessarily know that he was a gentleman. Again, take a look at this. Tobacco was a huge cash crop in colonial times. You learned about that in 5th grade. That is your work for day 1, right? Analyze those 2 and dig into them and answer those questions. Day 2, you're going to do the same thing for document 3, document 4, and document 5. Okay, 2 more chunks of text and a piece and a picture. When you are writing, right? When you are writing these responses, I don't expect you to print these out and then upload them into the Dropbox. I have an assignment here, right? So if we look at the assignment here, you could see that Civil War Slavery DBQ Part A. This is all questions, documents 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So you can see these are for documents 1 through 5. Document 1 answer should go here. Document 2 answer should go there. 3 should go there. 4 should go there, and so on. Okay, so now that it's Tuesday, you've completed all of the Part A. You're going to now open up this Part B, which you have a separate document for. And it says, using the documents, the answers to the questions in Part A, and your knowledge of social studies, write a well-organized essay about the Civil War. In your essay, remember to tell the purpose of slavery from colonial times until the Civil War and how slavery denied people their basic human rights. Include an introduction, body, and a conclusion. Include details, examples, or reasons to develop your ideas. Use the information from the documents in your answer. All right, so here you have some very specific tasks, but making it even more specific, which will actually be helpful, is this rubric. Okay, now if we take a look, and my version of the rubric is going to be slightly different than yours, right? It's going to look a little bit different. Move myself out of the way here. You have several categories, okay? So the first part is your opening, and each category is worth 4. You have an exceeds, a meets, an approaching, and a needs support, right? Just like our report cards. So you can exceed the standard, which is better than what you were expected. Meets the standard, which is what you should be shooting for, right? Very few people will exceed all the time in all things. Approaching means you're almost there, and needs support means that you're kind of missing the boat on this one. So we have the opening or claim, and taking a look at this, it introduces a topic and organizes ideas, concepts, and information using text structures. We've analyzed this rubric before. This is just the digital version of it. You also have a category for support, transition words, precise language, your style, right? There's no informal speak. You're not using text language, minimal lols, actually no LOLs in there, please. And then, of course, your conclusion, where you're restating this. But then I've added one more down at the bottom, and it's conventions. Since we're working on computers, and a lot of us need to work on this, we're spelling most words clearly, using some compound complex sentences, and higher order sentence structure follows conventions of grammar with few errors. Okay, so that means you're proofreading your work. You should always be the first person to read your finished product and make sure it is, in fact, finished. Okay, so all of this represents 3 days of work. Coming back to it, day one, you are taking a look at documents 1 and 2, and you are answering those questions. Day two, 3, 4, and 5, documents 3, 4, and 5, and you're completing the questions for them. And day three, you're taking a look at part B. Okay, and all of the answers for part B will actually go into the document for part B. So it looks like this. It is just a blank document. You are going to be the one who is typing in there. Please remember, you should have paragraphs. This should not be a big wall of text. Okay. You need to have an opening paragraph and a closing paragraph. You will definitely have at least one paragraph in between, but the 5-paragraph essay format is something you should shoot for. Okay. So even though this is 3 days of plans, you do have 5 days to complete it. And that is your social studies work for this week. Please let me know your questions. We will have a discussion about midweek to make sure that we have that. Keep your eyes out for a Google Hangout, Google Meet Hangout. And I will see you in the classroom.